Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody. And we are glad you're here with us. Back for more punishment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're back.
We're back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle, back in black. Well, no, kind of
We could pretend.
blue-green. I love blue-green.
I know. And we'll just pretend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Rama's back in black.
Yes. Rama is gorgeous guy. Yeah.
So please do subscribe to both channels. Check in daily, as more than likely we will have videos up daily. It's been a little bit more, sporadic with us lately. 2 or 3 and then nothing, and 2 or 3 and then nothing. But it's just really, it's playing the system and trying to play the system a little bit too, as we just finished another video and we were going to take a little break as I have 3 other videos lined up. But then they demonetized that one, so we put in for a human to actually look at it, and that usually happens in 24 to 48 hours. By the time that happens, usually the news is old news, but we're going to give it about 6 hours.
Yes. So, I mean, really a huge thank you to those of you who feel like helping us out with a cup of coffee or two, because that really does make up for so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, we're going to delve deep. We're going to go underground this time. Deep underground military bases, base sites. Cindy was saying, well, if they're deep underground military bases, what's the S for? And I was thinking, sites? I don't know. Scaly? Slimy?
I like scaly and slimy.
Or maybe it's the S for Musk.
That's another thought.
Yeah, Elon is, of course, he's a big part in this picture that's upcoming. And in fact, maybe in some ways there's going to be no more middle of all of our attention person than Elon. I think you had got from the guides that he's like a big transition period. So here's somebody that's not a politician yet, sort of. Yet in the public eye, who is quirky, kind of dorky, geeky, kind of likable, sort of. I mean, it's hard to feel. I don't know. Is it? Is it hard to feel the way you feel like if you look at 46, or if you look at some of the politicians out there? Anybody that's a member of the FEW. Again, we put that up to a mirror. There's a lot of people out there that automatically your stomach twinges and you might get a little nauseous, but not really with Elon. He's kind of he's been made this sort of semi-safe type of feel to him. The persona anyway,
a little light, a little airy, and he is a very important pivotal point in everyone's life. We have 7 very powerful pivotal points in our lives where something major happens and sends us in another direction. And it's the same thing with evolution. During certain amount of times, there's these huge pivotal points that send the entire evolution in a certain direction, and he's one of them. So that tells you how important his personality is. And he does need to be a little light, a little airy for people to, be able to look at him.
And since 99.5% of you guys are going to be the same crew that we talk to every day, same beloved family members, we know that when we speak evolution, you understand what we're talking about. Of course, we're not talking Darwinian. We're not talking that 33rd degree Mason version. But there is creation and there is evolution, as nothing ever stays the same. There's nothing that ever stays the same. Everything is constantly changing and evolving. Situations evolve, emotional states evolve. It's just the nature of things. And so here Elon says, I have seen no evidence of an advanced civilization visiting Earth. Fuzzy pics that are worse than a 7-Eleven security cam frame don't count. Neil Armstrong was the first person to land on the moon. Neil A backwards is alien. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it not? Because again, did he really land on the moon? Well, what we've gotten is no. As far as remote viewing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about remote viewing, as well as our contact with guides. And again, in certain ages and in past lives, we could share this with you. People like Cindy, they were burnt at the stake. They would be called a witch. Why? Because, she could talk to the dead. She could talk to beings from other dimensions. And her and I have both been able to see and interact with beings that are not on the physical all of our lives, all as far back as I could remember. Some of my first memories are that, exactly. So, and to share in past lives, we've been able to uncover some of our past lives. And yes, we have met that fate, being exterminated by the system. And the system is still in place. That's the bottom line. Stacking stone blocks is not evidence of advanced civilization. The rumor that building a spaceship to get back to my home planet Mars is totally untrue. The ancient Egyptians were amazing, but if aliens built the pyramids, they would have left behind a computer or something. Well, would they? Would they have any need for a computer? Again, when things evolve to a certain point. So here you go. The controllers of this reality in the Kali Yuga, in the Dark Ages, where are they? Well, yeah, technologically, they're light years ahead of us. But where are they compared to, say, when we start talking about, 5D, 6D, when we start talking about beings that are completely light beings and members of the Galactic Federation, some of them, others that we would call the Devas. Well, they're still, when we talk about our controllers, the Anunnaki Draconians, they're still playing with Tinker Toys compared to the technology of those beings on 5, 6, 7th D.
When he says those words about Egyptians were amazing, but if aliens built the pyramids, they would have left behind a computer or something, and that really jumped out at me. So when I asked, the honest truth is there is some type of computer evidence. There is a talking piece of equipment that explains more about the cataclysms, more about humanity, and this is something that they really keep hidden. So interesting that he even said that.
It is, and the fact is things have been rated too. So when you look, there was remote viewed, and I know Farsight Institute and others have remote viewed, and you could go back to Edgar Casey talking about, there's going to be this chamber under the Sphinx, yes. Right? Well, they've took it all out. They've gone and they've removed everything, all this evidence. They're constantly rewriting. They're constantly removing evidence. Again, this is part of why we have nonstop wars. So they could go back and wipe out traces of things that give it all away.
Mm-hmm. And they do it over and over. And, they cover up everything at all costs, even making things sound like completely ridiculous. And a lot of people might think, when I talk about this computer equipment that was found, I mean, it's probably just absolutely silly to most people, but it's the truth. And they cover these things up. Why? Because, gosh, they are going to hold on to their control come hell or high water.
Absolutely. And so why the illusion in the first place? Well, again, if you have a group of people on a planet thinking that they're free and everything is of their own decision, then they're willful slaves, so to speak. They don't even understand that they're still working the minds, that they're still working everything for these controllers. They don't have a clue. Most of them don't have a clue as to the real power structure, because the real power structure would blow their mind. If we understood the real power structure, then there'd be an outright rebellion and there'd be open warfare going on. And we don't really have that because we don't understand that we're actually working for them still in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's really sad. And the best analogy is probably looking at a farmer and how he has his farm set up or how he has his ranch set up. The animals that are there, they're just simply kind of happy. They're living, they're being, they're existing, they're eating. That's all they have to worry about. But that farmer, he knows a whole lot more about how things are truly run.
Yeah, absolutely. So if one cow's talking to another cow, or one sheep talking to another sheep, How you doing, George? Just fine. I'm just chewing my cud here, same as ever. Yeah, I heard a rumor. What's that? The end of time is here. The end of days. This is going to be the end of the world. Our world's going to end. You're just full of it. There's no reason for anything like that. Well, I heard the farmer talking. There's something about going to market. Yeah, you're crazy. You're one of those conspiracy artists. Yeah, that's what you are. But no, there is a time when they get taken to market and there's a culling, and then all of a sudden the flock is gone. And you see all these references again. The Lord is my shepherd. Oh boy. Again, be careful about who we think that Lord is, because again, many people, the Gnostics, recognize that the Old Testament being was kind of nasty, and they actually equated the Old Testament being with the demiurge and a very, very dark figure. But again, there's distortion everywhere, and of course, anybody that is a billionaire, to get to be a billionaire, you got to be part of the system. This is the first part in waking up, smelling the roses, smelling the smelling salts, getting our, thought processes to be a little bit realistic in that how could they get there in the first place? Do you really think there's all these rags to riches stories? Well, when we look at the ties and we recognize first, a lot of things are totally erased. We could look at Gil Bates, for instance, and we could look at ties there to the Rockefellers. Again, this isn't all in the family affair that we have going on. Elon is certainly very, very, very curious character. Here you see this article. This was from this August. Elon Musk admits to being an alien, what he actually said. Even if he goes back to his home planet, again, Mars. Well, Mars, Igigi, Mars mining. Mars is what we got. It's the origin of the Abrahamic traditions come from Mars. And again, who are the Igigi? Well, they're the ones that supposedly rebelled against the Anunnaki, and then you have humans taking their spot doing the heavy lifting. Doing all the slave labor, while the Igigi run the planet because they are 3D beings just like us and can, in fact, interbreed with us. And, so they're perfect intermediary. And again, they come from Mars. But when we look at Elon, yeah, he definitely has off-world ties.
Mm-hmm. He most definitely does. It's just something that came to me, and it was so clear and it was so obvious. I do get a little bit nervous when I talk about people, when I get these knowings and understandings, and I never want to hurt anybody's feelings, but when I see it, and it just paints a clearer picture.
Here he said Tesla will continue to do very well even if I was kidnapped by aliens. That's just an interesting thing to say, and of course aliens built the pyramids, obviously. Yeah, he's being facetious. And he says, I would like to die on Mars, not on impact. Oh, why? And why all this push to Mars? And why all the technology? Again, he is all about AI. He's all about AI. He's all about the AI interfaces. He's Neuralink. That's obvious. Do we know, and are we aware of some of the other things that he's been a part of? This is from February. And how Elon Musk plans to fix soul-destroying traffic in Texas and Miami. He has a company called the Boring Company. Not boring as in... what? No. Boring as in building underground tunnels. Yeah. And actuality, he submitted a plan for a 6.2-mile underground transit system in South Florida, where commuters would take Tesla vehicles that would carry them between 7 stations. Oh, yeah. He's actually built underground tunnel system in Vegas. There's plans on Texas, everywhere. This is all part of the bigger plan that's ongoing too. And when we see, well, do you remember the earthquakes in South Carolina, around Columbia, South Carolina. And again, I do have family still in the area there. So I was asking them, and they did feel them. There was a series of them very, very close to Fort Jackson. Fort Jackson processes more people that first come into the military for their basic training than like any other location in the whole country. So, it's a very, very, very big military site. And coincidentally, I'm going off on tangents now, but let me bring this up as, there's just so much that is connected in my mind, and sometimes I don't do a good enough job for you guys connecting it so you can understand and kind of read my mind. I'm not neural linked yet, at least as far as I know. I don't think so. Whoa. Okay, what's up with this? I didn't... What is this? This whole video might change here. That looks pretty big. 5.4. Yeah, that's pretty large. But again, this is fracking city. This is just nasty. I mean, you see what I mean? Those are all fracking sites. This is, we did one video that I mentioned fracking, and then I still felt that guides were saying, no, you got to talk more about this. And so we did an entire video, only got like 1,000 views, so they say. Look at this. It's right in the center of all these fracking sites. Well, hey, this is good because, again, this is all intertwined and intertied. Look at this horrible crap. I've been through this part, and it made me nauseous going through here. And, there can be a beauty to that barren desert, but I don't find that beautiful at all. So, 5.4 and some subsequent quakes. As you see, 3.3, 2.7, 2.6. That 5.4 is going to be in the top 10 in Texas. So, now we'll shoot over to another past home area. Now, there hasn't been anything I've seen, but here's Fort Jackson. And, I lived right around the corner from Fort Jackson for several years. These quakes were all over towards Elgin and, in this area and going off in a line. And in fact, I have not. Yeah, it's dead silent right now. So there's been nothing ongoing. But again, tunnels, military bases. We're going to do another video after this one going more into this. They take these areas that in legends and myths, which again, there's basic truths in there, where there's these areas that they can't have anybody venturing and looking, because you'll start to realize that there's been very advanced civilizations under our feet, guys, under our feet. And they're still there. They're still there in many cases. And so, Elon has this company that makes these tunnels. Isn't that just a coincidence? Here's the guy from Mars, so to speak, and we're talking about deep underground military bases, and he owns a boring company. And this is, again, some Teslas in one of his underground tunnels. The future. The future has arrived. Yeah, I mean, this is the type of equipment we're looking at that they're telling us, and there's a lot of other equipment that they won't let us see. The reality is, again, if we could see what's going on under our feet, and, thankfully I'm married to not just a beautiful, but a very, very gifted person, and we've been out in that desert, and I've gotten dizzy out in the desert for no apparent reason, and trying to figure out, why am I dizzy? Well, it's because we're walking on top of these things. We're walking over the heads of ETs and humans working together in these tunnels in the Nevada desert. Mostly is where that would happen. There's a couple areas that were off limits, and there was I'm not sure what technology they used, but I could tell that they were monitoring us, and we're always poking around where we're not supposed to. That's just kind of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they do. They have a lot of interesting things underneath our feet out in that desert. Because I could see what seemed to be concrete lights, metal, other things going on down there. Buzzing to and from. Very, very busy, and it was that kind of energy that hit Mike and made him dizzy.
Yeah, and it would do it on multiple occasions whenever we go to these certain areas that also seem to have a lot of fossils that look more like mud fossils. So you can see this little tweet from Elon there. Again, what's underneath our cities? Other cities. Other cities. Yeah, a massive, massive complex is under our feet. Some of it's acknowledged. There you go, the Boring Company. And look at that. Look at this. It's it would boggle the mind. And here he's talking about the Vegas Loop. The Vegas Loop. What did we see when we were leaving Vegas? When we were saying bye-bye Nevada? Because we lived together in Nevada for about 1.5 years or so. And when we were leaving, we saw loaded on a tractor 4 the size of tanks of those gigantic robot dogs like you see Boston Dynamics, but these were the size of tanks. And I was just flabbergasted. I was like, holy crap, look at that. But what's underneath Nellis Air Force Base? How deep down does it go in Area 51? This is an older map, U.S. Inner Earth Access Map from 1978, was incomplete. And look at that then, right? And I know it's blurry, guys, but couldn't get any bigger copies. But again, we've been blessed to live right over us. And then we've also lived underneath them in New Mexico as well.
I know not to send off on another tangent, but if you look at this map and then you look at another map, I don't know how many of you have heard about missing 411, but there's some comparisons there.
Yes, absolutely. There's a reason why people go missing in a lot of these locations in these state forests and all. We've had some seriously creepy instances happen, and we're thankful for Rama here to keep an eye open for us. So what's under our feet? Oh, if we only knew and could see everything that's under our feet. There's a labyrinth under our feet, a complete labyrinth. And what's the population? What's the inner Earth population compared to the surface population? That's another question. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know if you get any impressions. You haven't delved into that yet. We'll have to do some more research on that. But you can see like this one section here. New Mexico doesn't have a lot of people in it. And that's one of the reasons why we decided we were going to try to homestead there permanently. But then with the plague upon the land, the governor, I mean, it felt like the most Gestapo lockdown we experienced. And, we spent most of the lockdown time in New Mexico or in Nevada until we got to Texas. And then we did overshoot and we went and spent time in Mississippi and in Louisiana as well. And, New Mexico is cryptid city. It's loaded. But then again, so is Nevada, close to in between Tonopah and Pahrump, and then over to, I forget what's the name of that other little town there. But basically all within the military bases there. And what was that other town when we're heading north and heading towards Reno? There's that little town that had the tank out in it.
Hawthorne. Hawthorne.
Yeah, Hawthorne too. I mean, Hawthorne. Whoa, there's so much storage there, and much more than just storage.
Yeah.
Yes, they are storing weapons there. Yes, they have bunkers out the wazoo. It's just, but 85% of Nevada is government land. 85% of Nevada is government land. what's there is just it's beyond comprehension for most people. So when we look at Dulce, and this is again New Mexico, underground shuttle to Los Alamos. Oh yeah, this is showing a schematic of an underground base there at Dulce, and you could see the different levels: security, communications, human staff housing, execs and labs, mind control experiment, alien housing, genetic experiments, cryogenic storage. One of the things that we've gotten, that it's quite often the case that when you see these cryptid sightings, whether we're talking, Bigfoot type things, things like the Ozark Howler, the Rougarou, Dogman type things. And again, there are differences between all these. And when we say Bigfoot, man, that's a big category.
Yeah.
That's a massive category. There's many, many different species involved in, something that we would call Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of times, these are things that are out and about. They either escape or they're purposely let out.
That's what I could see. It's really unfortunate because there are some that do escape, and escape anybody would want to because of the conditions that they house them in.
Yeah, again, when we look back to the mythology and we see all these different hybrids in the Greek mythologies, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Phil Schneider spoke out about this, and he gave us this story, which you can choose to believe or not believe. The only thing I will say is he's no longer with us, and somebody apparently took him out. So was he just saying a lot of BS? Would somebody, take him out if it was just stories? If there was nothing to see here? Yeah. American Special Forces engaged in a massive firefight with aliens who had established a deep base below the New Mexico desert, so says an eyewitness. Yes, this is from the Express, but you could find this story on, pick your choice of several dozen different sources. This one's the Huffington Post. Yeah, it's located right on the Colorado-New Mexico border. Quaint little town. And, it gets you thinking about the hum, right? There's this hum that people experience out there. And, what is it? Well, obviously, it's equipment. There's machinery. There's always new tunnels being drilled. There's always new equipment being put in place. There's always new experiments being done on humans.
And even out in the desert, if you put your hands on the telephone poles, you can really feel how much of a vibration they put. It's almost like there's definitely trains going by right below your feet at that moment in time.
And, I did have a friend, too, that was out this way, that was in the military, and he was not all there. After his experiences, he wasn't all there, and he told me of being out there in the 70s when he was in the military, and he witnessed them using lasers that blasted right through mountainsides like butter. And he was just sharing the technology with me, and this was going back into the 80s, that he was telling me about what he had seen in the 70s. So again, this is also the tribal headquarters of the Jicarilla Apache Reservation, and supposedly a secret underground alien base. Phil Schneider, an explosive engineer who worked for the U.S. government with high-level security clearance, claimed in 1979 he participated in the building of a secret underground base in Dulce, New Mexico. It was here that a horrific battle played out, leaving 60 humans dead and countless subterranean aliens fighting for their life. He asserts that he was suspicious of the engineering operation while noticing the presence of Green Berets and Special Forces. His fears were realized when, after drilling underground, he came face to face with a 7-foot-tall, stinky gray alien. Obviously, he freaked out and grabbed the pistol he was carrying, because that's what engineers do, ? And shot and killed 2 aliens. Another alien shot some laser plasma ball or whatever at him and blew off some of his fingers. He was saved by a Green Beret who allegedly gave his life for him. In all, 60 human people allegedly lost their lives that day at the alien-human battle of Dulce. There's a war under there, and it's going on since that time, he said. He spoke of 1,477 underground bases around the world, 129 of which were located in the United States. Each one cost $17 billion or more. He said the black budget, hidden from other U.S. government agencies and from the public, garners 25% of the gross national product. Military forces from multiple countries have been engaged in warfare with the aliens, he said. Schneider became an outspoken advocate, calling for the government to be more transparent about their knowledge of alien life. He also believed people in government were trying to shut him up. When he died by suicide, his supporters called foul play. Well, yeah, again, your hands tied behind your back, rubber hose, around your neck. That's not the way you usually would do it,
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
Yeah. Political scientist Michael Barkham claimed the underground missile installations built during the Cold War led to numerous rumors and ultimately led to the Dulce alien K-base legend. However, in 1999, the French government published a study concluding that the U.S. government has withheld evidence that point to the existence of UFOs. The paper was entitled UFOs in Defense, What Must We Be Prepared For? So, you can see the clippings here. It's interesting to say the least. I do think it's interesting. Now, Farsight here, they've got videos which, again, we can't really play those, but I'll give you guys the link. And here's from their website. In 1979, there was a reported incident, a physical battle between extraterrestrials and humans. It supposedly took place at a time when the U.S. government was tunneling into the ground near Archuleta Mesa, not far from the town of Dulce, New Mexico, which is in the north of New Mexico, right by Colorado's border. Tunneling was part of an attempt to build a deep underground military base, and the military has many of those such bases, including Area 51. And it goes into the incident as well. Now, they go on to say the project does not target Phil Schneider, nor is the project dependent on the assumption that the story he told is true. The project takes as an idea that the event described by Schneider is intriguing, given Farsight's past research that indicates there are a great many underground extraterrestrial bases on Earth. The possibility of an event as such described by Schneider seems significant, regardless of whether or not his personal account is real or fictional. The goal of the project is to gather evidence whether it actually did occur. So, it goes into the details and the targets. It's fun. And again, we were talking about Edward Reardon and his abilities and how he in 2017, he didn't know what he was seeing, but he saw the plague upon the land. And he described so freaking accurately exactly what's going on in people right now. It's just beyond eerie. But see, the big point is we all have these abilities. It's just a matter of developing them. Maybe in this life we can't all be a Cindy, but in the generation to come, yeah, and once we get deeper into this Bronze Age, we're gonna just have such expanded abilities. Our whole reality is changing right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about being a Cindy. I do think Mike is partial. He loves me an awful lot. But I think we do. We can. And if we put our minds to it, we can perceive and we can achieve. And then we too can see these things coming from a mile away and have that deeper understanding. And just keep in mind that the system is set up to pull you back and forth and sideways and upside down and really kind of gnaw away at your emotions so you can hardly do that inner growth, but it is that dedication, going deep within and understanding things that gives you the answers. And it's something that we can all at least practice.
And again, we speak from direct interaction, direct knowledge. So for us, it's not like, we have to share this story. We share this story because it's interesting and we want you to be able to look and, make up your own mind and your own ideas. Now, when I was 7 years old, that's my first memory of seeing an extraterrestrial, and it was right by my bedside. And, it was right there. And it came 2 nights successively at the same time. And thus I slept with my parents for a month after that, because it was just creepy. And I have seen the tall grays, and one of them did sabotage me physically. And it sabotaged me physically after I turned down one of those secret societies reaching out to us. Because again, they would love to recruit people that they know have certain abilities that are developed already, or people that have the potential to have, significant abilities. They're always on the lookout and to recruit, absolutely. And so it wasn't even a month later after I said no, not interested, that I woke up because I felt something going into my energy body, and there I saw, I would say it was about 8 foot tall gray. And, I've shared that story many times with you guys. And that was December of 2017. And remember it clearly. And, the interesting part is I wasn't really startled. And it was. And so it just shifted its consciousness. It did something that looked akin to meditation. And it slowly became no longer totally solid, but just kind of a fuzzy, almost like fuzz on a TV if there's no channel, pattern, where its shape was still outlined, but it was more of that interference pattern, then it was gone. But I watched it, I would say, for 90 seconds. And again, it's not, those are not the only 2 instances. My kids have both had times when they've had the little grays terrorizing them during their life. And then Cindy's had numerous interactions and her eyes are going up. Oh yeah. And my father did as well, and her father did as well. So, it's nothing new for us. And many of you guys have shared this too, that you have also experienced these things. Direct experience. When you see and then you know. It's just that easy. But if you haven't, it's interesting to uncover all this.
And if you haven't, it's really hard to relate and understand that it's true, that it's real, that it's tangible. And so many people go through these experiences, and so many of them are actually very traumatizing. And it's very hard to wrap your mind around. And you sit there and you second guess yourself, and you're like, really? Did that really happen? And a lot of people talk themselves out of it. And then there's a lot of people who they can put you in a state and these things happen and you don't even know that it's happened. But you know what? Your soul does. So you might have issues of PTSD and information coming back that you're reacting to that you can't remember. And it's just really such an unfair state. But that's what happens.
So, do you have a deep underground base, perhaps under you right this very moment?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
As always, guys, thank you so much for your support, both over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without you guys. Check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com to learn more about us as well. Much love. Look forward to your comments. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.